Hello human beings, PowerGamer here, and 2022 has officially come to a close. Overall, I'd say it was a pretty good year for video games. We had some huge titles release, and I thought it would be fun to count down some of my favorites. The only rules for this list are that it had to have released in 2022, and I had to have played them. Sadly, there were some major titles I never got around to, like God of War Ragnarok or Horizon Forbidden West, so those won't be on here. With that out of the way, these are my top 10 games of 2022.
Number 10. Cursed to Golf. Starting off the list is a quaint little indie game that seems to have flown under the radar, which is a shame because I think this is a really solid title. At its core, it's a puzzle game mixed with a golf game, but it's also very roguelike, much like The Binding of Isaac, Hades, Dead Cells, and Enter the Gungeon. Only while with those games you're crawling through dungeons fighting enemies, here you're just playing golf. The game has a lot of charm to it, and it's able to make a sport as simple as golf very engaging. You only have a limited number of shots per hole, and you get more by hitting these statues. If you fail, you have to start over from the beginning, but the courses are randomized, which makes each run through unique. The pixel art is amazing, the music is super catchy, and the story is very creative and pretty morbid, with the main character dying and being sent to golf purgatory. Not many people know about this game, but I think it's really fun and definitely earns a spot on my list. Number 9. Bayonetta 3, the highly anticipated return of everyone's favorite Umbra Witch. Bayonetta 3 had some massive shoes to fill, especially after how beloved the first two games were. And while I can't speak for others, I think this was a really solid follow-up. It retains everything great about the first two games, with the over-the-top action, gorgeous visuals, awesome music, and fantastic combat, with the witch time ability still being amazing. And thankfully, the game adds a ton of new abilities for Bayonetta, with the biggest one being able to actually control the demon she summons. This is awesome and leads to some crazy battles straight out of a Godzilla movie. I would have liked to put this game higher, but good lord, this story is terrible, even by Bayonetta standards. But with that aside, it's still refreshing to see the series return, and hopefully this isn't the last we'll ever see of it. I mean, there was also that whole issue with Bayonetta's old voice actor, but we don't need to talk about that here. Moving on. Number 8. Nintendo Switch Sports. A lot of people had mixed thoughts on this game, and I can kinda understand why. While the content is kinda bare, and it's not as mind-blowing as Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort were when they first came out, that doesn't make it a bad game. It's basically a successor to those games, but with half returning sports and half new ones. Bowling, tennis, sword fighting, or chambara as it's called in this game, volleyball, soccer, and badminton. And just recently they added golf. Granted, not every game in the package is great, volleyball is kinda boring, and soccer is soccer, but the returning games are just as fun as they were in the Wii games, and I think badminton does enough to make it stand on its own from tennis. There are definitely some downsides, like there's no single-player option, you have to play multiplayer, either locally or online, and bowling, there's no way to turn off this obstacle mode, which happens at random, and it's just annoying, but I am still really happy this game exists, and I enjoy playing it. It's no masterpiece, but it delivers exactly what it promises, and sometimes that's all you need to do. But it does move down a couple of slots for the special bowling. Seriously, what the hell is this? Number 7. Splatoon 3, the sequel people didn't know they wanted. Splatoon 3 was certainly a surprise when it was announced, but a welcome one nonetheless, and it more than does enough to warrant its existence. It has all the same multiplayer modes from the first two games like Turf War, Tower Defense, and Splatfests, but there's plenty of new modes in the form of anarchy battles. We even have the new Table Turf card game. There's tons of new maps and weapons you can use. The story mode works about as well as the previous two games, only now there's a new threat in the form of the Mammalians. The hub world and levels have a more desert/wasteland theme to them, which is a nice change of pace from the city environments of the previous two games. Plus, the game adds some much-needed quality of life improvements, like being able to skip the opening news broadcasts, and Salmon Run can now be played anytime you want instead of just certain times of day. Nintendo has a lot of franchises that don't last very long, but it looks like Splatoon is not going to be one of them. Number 6. Elden Ring. Easily the most popular game of the year, that's for sure. And while I don't love it as much as everybody else does, I still think it's a great game. The open world you have to explore is massive and filled with secrets. The combat is immensely satisfying to perfect, and the game looks absolutely gorgeous. This is one of the best looking games I have ever seen. The only thing that holds this game back a bit for me is that it is absolutely brutal. I mean, it's a From Software title, of course it's gonna be brutal. To some people, that can be part of what makes this game amazing, but for others, it can be a huge turnoff. I'm a bit mixed on it. It can be satisfying, but it can also be soul-crushing. I'll admit I didn't get to play much of this game, but I would like to go back to it later, so my opinion could very easily change. Regardless, it's still a well-made, high-quality experience that I would recommend, only if you're up to the challenge, though. Number 5. River City Girls 2. The first River City Girls was a fun revival/role reversal of the River City Ransom games. In those games, you fought waves of enemies as two guys trying to save their kidnapped girlfriends, while here you play as two girls trying to save their kidnapped boyfriends. And thankfully, this game does everything a sequel should do. It has everything great about the first game while also having new elements. Gorgeous pixel art graphics, a killer soundtrack, great writing and voice acting, and a system that lets you get new moves, making the combat feel less repetitive. This game also has a more in-depth map, more characters to play as, and a more original story, with the Yakuza taking over the town and needing to stop them instead of it just being a simple rescue mission. And you can play with up to 4 people this time instead of just 2. If you're looking for a fun game to play with friends, I think this is an amazing option. It may not be the deepest game out there, but it's addicting, satisfying, and way more fun than it has any right to be. Number 4. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the Pink Puff's long-awaited jump into the third dimension. For years, it seemed like every major Nintendo franchise got a full 3D game except Kirby, but now that's no longer the case. And if you ask me, he made the jump really well. I don't have too much experience with the Kirby series, but this is easily one of the best Kirby games I've ever played. It's better than Star Allies, at least. The game looks gorgeous, the music is great, the story and worlds are really interesting, the levels are fun to explore and filled with secrets to discover, the boss fights are epic, Kirby's signature copy ability is always fun to use, and here you can even upgrade some of the abilities to make them stronger, and the new Mouthful mode is a really fun gameplay mechanic that has even more abilities to Kirby's arsenal. People have been waiting years for a truly 3D Kirby game, and if you ask me, it was totally worth the wait. Number 3. Sonic Frontiers. After the mixed reception of Sonic Forces, Sega decided it was time to change things up for our favorite Blue Hedgehog, and I think it totally paid off. This is one of my favorite Sonic games I've ever played. The open world, while not as big as something like Breath of the Wild, is still massive and tons of fun to explore. There's a bunch of secrets to discover and collectibles to find, and the game has these cyberspace areas which play more like a traditional Sonic game, so it's able to feel new while still keeping many of the elements people liked about Sonic to begin with. The game looks fantastic, the music is great like most Sonic games, the combat and leveling system works surprisingly well, the boss fights are awesome and feel like robotic versions of creatures from Shadow of the Colossus. And while stories in Sonic games tend to be hit or miss, this one is really good, with Sonic needing to save his friends and even Eggman from a mysterious cyber girl named Sage. The Sonic series has gone through a lot of ups and downs, but if this is an indication of the future, I think the series is in pretty good hands. Number 2. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. One of the more conflicting releases of the year, but one that I totally adored. We had 2 new Pokemon games released this year, and I decided to limit myself to only one of them. And if you're wondering why I chose Scarlet and Violet, maybe the amount of time I've put into both games will show you which one I prefer. It's not knocking on Legends Arceus though, both games are great. I just personally liked Scarlet and Violet more. People have been asking for an open world Pokemon game for years, and this game totally delivers. The Paldea region is massive, and you're free to explore almost anywhere right from the start. Exploring and finding new Pokemon to catch has never been more fun than it is in this game. There are tons of unique areas to find, and it's a blast to see them all. Almost all of the new Pokemon are amazing, the battle system is still tons of fun, and the new terrestrialization gimmick really adds a new dynamic to your strategy. This game also has hands down the best story and characters in any Pokemon game ever. The soundtrack is amazing, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I think the graphics are great. Just look at the textures on the Pokemon. They look fantastic. This game honestly might have taken the top spot on my list, but good God, the frame rate can be abysmal. Aside from that though, it is a fantastic experience that at least has the potential to be the greatest Pokemon game ever made. Just really needs a few patches. And the number 1 best game of 2022 is LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. Probably not what you were expecting, huh? I loved the LEGO games growing up, and I was really looking forward to this, and my god, did it not disappoint. LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga was already regarded by many as the best LEGO game, but what's better than having 6 movies to play through? Well, how about 9? I initially thought this would just be a remaster of the Complete Saga with levels for the sequel trilogy added, but no, it is a completely original game, and it's awesome. You're free to explore almost any planet across all 9 movies. The combat is much more in-depth than the older LEGO games. Almost every character has a variety of abilities you can use, and many of them you can even upgrade. The graphics are way better than they have any right to be, and this is one of the funniest games I have ever played in my life. The writing is amazing, and almost every character is voiced by their official voice actor from the shows, and even some from the movies. But even if you prefer the original silent characters from the old LEGO games, you can turn on Mumble mode, and the game is just as hilarious. The levels are filled with collectibles to unlock, even more than that of the Complete Saga. The vehicle levels are massively improved and feel like actual vehicles. There's even a plethora of side quests you can do. This honestly might be one of my new favorite video games of all time. While it might not be as deep or complex as something like Elden Ring, I don't care. This is easily the game I had the most fun with in 2022. It is an absolute love letter to Star Wars fans, and that's why, for me, it takes the title of the best game of the year.
But I am still really disappointed about what happened with online bowling in Nintendo Switch Sports, so I wrote a complaint letter to Nintendo, and they finally responded, so let's see what we got. Dear customer, we are very sorry to hear about your complaints. Please accept this as an apology.